Guy Ritchie's The Covenant, starring Jake Gyllenhaal and Salim, is actually pretty damn good, and it's odd it seemed to get completely overlooked. Stick around and let's talk about it on the other side. Let me start by saying I'm not going to go into the weeds talking about US policy here. I'll just say that my feelings about our excursions into the Middle East after 9/11 changed pretty drastically within a few years, and I've been largely against being there for a very long time. When we finally did pull out in one of the largest clusterfucks in the history of our military, it was way past time. Oh, and fuck this guy. With that in mind, that's the setting for Guy Ritchie's The Covenant, starring Jake Gyllenhaal and Salim. The movie begins in 2018 following Gyllenhaal's John Kinley, a U.S. Special Forces Master Sergeant whose unit is charged with locating improvised explosive devices, or IEDs. During a routine vehicle search, the Taliban sets off a truck bomb, killing a member of the unit as well as Kinley's interpreter. Tasked with finding a replacement, Kinley meets Ahmed, who is not exactly the easiest to work with, and who says his only interest in working with the Americans is for the money he'll earn and for the visa he needs to immigrate to the U.S. But Kinley sees something in him he likes. Immediately, Ahmed proves his worth, despite his prickly demeanor, when he saves the unit from a Taliban ambush due to an Afghan National Army soldier within their unit being compromised. Using Ahmed and his understanding of the locals, Kinley discovers a possible IED factory approximately 60 miles north of Bagram Air Base, and the unit heads out to investigate. As the Americans roll up to search the facility, the insurgents running the factory are able to get word out to Taliban leaders that the U.S. forces have found the location, and the unit is soon overwhelmed by Taliban fighters, who kill everyone in the unit except for Kinley and Ahmed. And while the duo manages to shoot their way out at first, eventually they're tracked down, and Kinley is severely wounded, though Ahmed manages to kill the remaining Taliban fighters, saving Kinley's life. But now they're trapped 60 miles away from base with a severely injured man with no transportation and deep in Taliban-controlled territory.
Well, that sounds bad when you say it like that.
Ahmed manages to not only keep Kinley alive, but has to literally drag him, using various carts he improvises along the way over the mountains and back to the base. It is the most tense Rocky training montage ever filmed. Kinley wakes up back in the States in the hospital recovering from his ordeal with virtually no memory of how he was saved, other than knowing Ahmed was completely responsible. The problem now is that the visa Ahmed and his family were promised for his work as an interpreter for the U.S. forces is being denied, and he and his family are forced to go underground to avoid the wrath of the Taliban who vowed to kill everyone involved with aiding the Americans. Kinley can't live with knowing his life being saved is why Ahmed is being hunted, and he tries everything possible to get him out using the proper channels. When that ultimately fails, he decides to go back to Afghanistan himself and extract Ahmed and his family and repay the considerable debt he owes. The Covenant was a sleeper for me. I'd seen the trailer for it at the theater back in the beginning of the year, but I swear I don't recall it ever actually being released. At the time, I thought it looked like one I'd be interested in, but it just sort of vanished. Maybe this is the result of it being an Amazon production, but who knows? It's too bad because the movie is much better than that. Both Gyllenhaal and Salim give outstanding performances, and their chemistry is great together. I know that not everyone digs Jake Gyllenhaal, but I've never really understood that. I've always found him to be either good or great in most of the things he's been in, and this is no exception. He's fully believable as a special forces operator here. Now, I'm completely unfamiliar with Salim, but he's an Iraqi-born Danish actor. He was really good here. I'll need to track down some other things he's been in and check him out. And while there are a handful of big action sequences, the movie actually shines the brightest in the smallest scenes with the duo being hunted or having to evade search parties looking for them. There's actually much more tension and a sense of stakes in those scenes than the larger ones. Ritchie does a tremendous job with those. Now, not that I give much credence to any of the review sites, but the movie was liked by both critics and audiences alike. A bit of a rarity at this point. And yet it basically bombed at the theater, and I'm not sure why. With a budget of roughly $55 million, it earned less than $22 million at the box office. The Covenant was released on April 21st, 2023, and up against nothing really. It had a couple of weeks of unimpeded runway before Guardians 3 hit theaters on May 5th, and Super Mario swallowed up ticket sales a few weeks later beginning May 16th. This feels for all the world like just terrible marketing. And like I said, I'd seen the trailer for it and then had no clue it was released. And I sort of pay attention to this stuff, you know? Plus, this feels much more like a fall movie when more intellectual adult-type movies tend to get released. Tossing it out in early April was just a kiss of death here. Regardless, it's now on Amazon Prime and will likely stay there virtually forever. So do yourself a favor and check this one out. Not only is it a well-written, tight script, well acted by both the lead actors as well as the featured extras, and an exciting watch, but it oddly feels like a bit of a throwback in that there doesn't appear to be any forced current thing jammed in to appease any groups. So if that kind of thing bothers you as much as it does me, no worries here. It also stays away from making any real comments on the actual involvement in the war, focusing on the story of these two individual men and generically the real-life interpreters and aides the US did abandon in those final days. I think it'll one day be seen as a definitive addition to movies based on the war in Afghanistan, sort of the way movies like Platoon and Full Metal Jacket define the Vietnam-era films. It's really good. Until next time, thanks for watching.